We are Heather and Paul Christie.
And for over 12 years, we've worked with executives and entrepreneurs to accelerate change in every aspect of their business.
Because we are in the fastest paced business environment that anyone has ever seen before.
So join us for the Evolve to Win show. Hi, and welcome to another Evolve to Win show with Heather and Paul. We have a great topic today, very timely with all of the new graduates from high school. We see that prom has kicked off, and we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that and prepare those new graduates for the job market.
So whether you're graduating from high school or whether you're graduating from college, we know that the job search can be daunting. It can be overwhelming and stressful. And we're going to share with you the top 3 things that you should be asking yourself to really help you find that job that is the perfect fit for you. So today we're talking about finding your ideal job. How do you prepare yourself to get there? And so parents, if you're listening to this one, you might want to take some notes for your kids and or share it with them and see if they might listen to us directly.
I think just one of the biggest challenges, and I know getting out of school and finding a job, I remember even though I kind of knew I wanted to go into sales, I thought sales was sales, and I didn't really understand that if I went and worked for another company, a different company than I started with, that maybe they would have had a better system for helping me to become a better salesperson. But there were a lot of things that I wish I knew before I went into the job market. Just preparing myself better. I just went in going, oh, well, I'm just going to go and sell anything. Yeah. I didn't know exactly what I was going to sell. So I think
or even why you wanted to go into sales in the first place. And
right.
Was that the perfect fit for you?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
I think
that's a great point.
The underlying thing that we want to start off with just as a foundation for this conversation is, I think the number one rule, and something I wish I had known when I was first entering the job market, is know thyself, right? The more that you are in tune with who you are and what makes you tick and what you really, really want in a job, in a profession, in a career, that's what's most important. And I've heard time and time again from whether it's our friends' children or, young people who we're connected with who are just entering the job market, they don't really know what they want to do. So if you can relate with that in any way, we're going to help you to kind of dive deeper and maybe not make some of the mistakes that we did, shorten your path to success by really looking into a few different things. So,
yeah, and I think a lot of people do maybe know the career that they want to go into. Maybe a small percentage do.
Yeah.
But they really don't ask themselves these 3 questions that we're going to talk about right now.
Yeah.
And also when you brought up, know thyself, when that's kind of a general statement in that, but what we're really talking about is, do you know what your behavioral styles are? What is the best fit for the job? What is the best fit for a career that you choose? And also, what motivates you? What are the things that really drive you? And both of those things are really going to be important in picking the job that you want to work with, choosing the company that you want to work with, and also being content and happy with the decision that you make.
Yeah, because we're all wired very differently. And so what could be a great fit for someone else? You see someone else in your family, in your world, who loves their career, and so you think, oh my gosh, that's the perfect career. But if you're not wired similar to that person, you're going to find yourself unhappy and possibly even disengaged in a job that otherwise looks like a fantastic job. So we're going to, first of all, let's talk about some of the good news, right? Mm-hmm. There's some recent statistics that came out from a survey. It was a Job Outlook survey done by the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And here's the great news. First of all, their employers in the United States are going to employ 16.6% more 2019 graduates than they did in 2018. So this year's already looking way better than last year. That's great news for our graduates. The second thing, and this statistic is the one that I was most excited to hear, is that we have the best job market right now in terms of new hires coming in than we have since 2007. So the hiring outlook.
Like 12 years ago.
That's a long time ago. That's like before that big recession hit,
Yeah.
right? So, so you guys, those of you graduating right now, and even if you're a recent graduate, it's still great news for you too. The job market's great. And that being said, it's also extremely competitive right now, because one of the other things we know from the recent Gallup poll on employee engagement is that 51% of U.S. employees are actively seeking new employment. So you've got these new graduates coming out of class, and we've got great outlook for them coming in.
Yep.
But we also have a lot of employees that are already in the workforce, who already have some experience. They're hungry for different jobs and lateral moves or different moves as well. But I think that's all good news. I think it's great news.
But I think the Gallup poll, though, the statistics that are, we've covered them a few times on this podcast, but talking about people who are disengaged and actively disengaged, there's a very high percentage of people in the workforce that are actively disengaged, meaning they hate their job.
Yeah.
They are trying to undermine everything that's going on in the workplace.
Everything good. Yeah.
They're colluding with people. But a lot of times these people, the reason that these people are disengaged is because they haven't found the right job. They're not in a right fit for them. So they're unhappy because they chose the wrong job market.
Right. So
Not
don't
job market, the wrong job.
Wrong job. So don't become one of those employees who is disengaged with their work. Don't become one of those people who has the black Sundays because they hate going to work on Mondays. We want you to get really, really intentional about this job search and finding a job that's the perfect fit for you. So keeping in mind that the underlying factor in all of this is going to be, you got to know what you want. We're going to give you some questions to ask. Question number 1. Do you want to give question number 1?
Yes.
Okay, go.
What kind of workplace will make me thrive?
All right. So the type of workplace that will make you thrive. Now, I think a lot of people just entering the job market, they might be searching help wanted ads without thinking about these deeper questions that make all the difference in the world. So when you think about the type of workforce, I was so blessed. I was so lucky when I was younger to have people in my life who were mentors of mine who helped guide me and direct me and asked me some of these questions. So I got to experience a lot of different work environments before I even came out of college.
Mm-hmm.
I actually worked as a temp in college, so I got to do project assignments with a number of different companies. So let's look at things like, when you think about what type of workforce is the kind of environment that would make you thrive, do you want to be in a big company or do you want to be in a small company? Do you want to be private sector? Do you want to be government? Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, I don't know because it's my first job, so I'm not really clear on this. Well, there are some other questions you can ask yourself to get clear on that, right? Be thinking about, what's really important for you in terms of the job that you take on. Would you like to be in an environment that is lively and collaborative and has a lot of people interaction? You might like to have more of an open workspace, as an example.
Right.
Or maybe you're someone who doesn't do well in a chaotic environment with a lot of people, and you want to be able to have a private type of office space, or at least your own cubicle where you can get away from some of the noise and the chaos so that you can really focus. So you've got to know you and what works best for you.
Right.
What are some other questions about the workplace?
Well, I think just interaction with people. So do you want to be around more people in more of a collaborative type of environment, or do you, again, want to be more by yourself? Could be in the cubicle, but maybe just not surrounded, maybe in smaller groups that you're working together with.
Mm-hmm. Some other things to think about is there's a lot of different opportunities these days. Do you want to have the traditional type of hours where you're working like a 9-to-5 job, or would you like to have more flexible hours? Are you the type of person who wants to get up and work really early, or have flexibility and work when you want to and just be responsible for the results that you produce? So be thinking about whether you want structure or whether you want flexibility. And remember, flexibility requires a lot more independence and discipline, right, to be able to get done what needs to get done.
Right.
There are a lot of options now for whether you go into a traditional office space or whether you work remotely. So what do you prefer? And that has to do as well with the type of individual you are, because there are some people who thrive being in their own environment where they can control their surroundings. And there are others who just can't get motivated to be, if they're by themselves, they end up in their pajamas all day. Probably not a good thing. So be thinking about what type of, do you want more traditional or do you want something?
Yeah, I mean,
flexible?
are you more of a logical person that's more data driven so that you're really going to want to just be working by yourself? Or are you someone that's a little bit more emotionally, you really like to brainstorm with people, you are somebody that, again, likes to interact with people? Really distinguish those two before you decide where you want to go, where you're going to thrive.
Yeah. So I made a mistake on that early in my career. When I first came out of law school, I took a job that, I learned what I didn't like, which was I was in general practice and I was responsible for all these different areas of law. And for me, I felt like, oh my gosh, I just can't get good enough. I can't gain expertise by doing all these different areas of practice. So I got laser focused. I said, okay, I've learned from this. I want to specialize and I want to become an expert in one area and really, really learn that area of law. So that was good. I sort of eliminated things by figuring out what I didn't want. And I said, I want to become a specialist. The challenge is the specialty that I chose was technology law. So for me, it was really exciting because it was new and it was different and it was hot and exciting and kind of sexy at the time. Well, I don't know that technology law is actually sexy, but I thought it was. What it turned out. It was
back then.
Back then, because
yeah,
it was so
like in the
new.
90s,
it was
right?
hot.
Yeah.
But what I didn't recognize is that job required me to basically be quarantined in my office behind a computer for 12 to 15 hours per day, drafting big agreements, major contracts. And there was very, very little people interaction. And for me, that was a drain. It took a lot of energy from me to be so detail oriented. So again, know who you are and know what type of office environment and what type of work will really feed your soul. Because when you find the right job, it doesn't even feel like work. Okay, so that's a little bit about work environment. Second question you should be looking at and asking yourself.
Is the company culture aligned with your own values? So values and the company culture, so important to really, and I think this is where most young people make a mistake, especially because you're coming out of school and you're all excited about, I just want to go get a job. I'm finally going to get paid. Somebody's going to pay
make money.
me.
Yeah.
And so you take whatever job you take because it's just offered out there and you're interviewing and you're like, oh, this company looks pretty cool. But you really don't look at what is the company culture like. And there's so many different tools now that you can find out kind of what's underneath the hood within a company.
Yeah.
And really, it always comes down to the leader of the company. So if you know who the leader is and you know how they run their business, you're going to get a pretty good idea of what the culture is like in that particular business.
Yeah. And you can actually start to sense and feel the culture when you go in during the interview process. And we'll talk a little bit more about interviewing in a moment, but the questions that you ask should really be geared toward making sure that you get a deeper dive into what that company culture is. So first things first, you have to know what you value. What's most important to you in the company that you work for? So if you could take some time and write down, what do you value within a company? Things like, for me, it was really important that in a company, there was open communication and that there was an opportunity to receive feedback. For me, it's really, really important that the company is really committed to personal and professional growth, because I look at, in working for a company, I want to use that as a training ground to improve my skills to get better. So what sort of offerings did they have for me to grow as an employee? What sort of career path was available to me? Now, not everybody is looking for, promotion opportunities or career pathing, but you've got to know what it is that's important for you. A respectful environment, a company that acts with integrity. What are your core values that mean the most to you? Because here's what we know about matching values with a company culture. If you have a strong match, you're much more likely to be engaged and energized when you show up at work, and you'll find that the other employees are as well. When there's a mismatch, that's when we really start to see levels of disengagement, right? It just doesn't work. So give a more practical example if you have one about culture.
Well, I think what you were talking about, the good example is of asking to find out if they have like opportunities to learn, to get better, to grow. Because here's one of the number one mistakes that graduates make, whether it's high school or it's college, that they believe that once they finish and they graduate that they're done learning. And
Big mistake.
And what you really have to understand is that job should be providing you ongoing training and teaching you to be a better, whatever that is, whatever your career path is. And there should always be. And if they don't have it, can you ask them, will they pay for you to get certifications? There's so much online now. There's so much training that goes past like universities and high schools that you have to be continuing to learn, because it's going to give you a much better up in your career and opportunities to progress. So I think that's one big part of it, is just asking about that. The other thing is going on like Glassdoor and looking on glassdoor.com and search the company and go in and find out what people are saying about it. Now, a lot of times you'll hear people complaining that are, disgruntled employees, but you can get a feel for what is going on with that company. You can ask other people if they know. You can put it out on Facebook and say, hey, I'm looking at opportunities with this company, this company, this company. Does anybody have anybody that they know that works there, or have they ever had an experience with that company? What is it? So you can reach out. There's so many ways for you to find out about that culture. The other thing too is, who's the owner of the company, or who's the CEO of the company? Do research on them. Watch videos that they do. Find out what type of person they are. So if you can see that they're pretty hardcore, you can get that company is going to be run the way that person is putting themselves out in videos and on social media and different places. So you'll get a good feel for that. If they're soft and they're all about creating a real workable environment and really all about helping the employees, and that could be it as well, and that could be a good fit for you. But I would definitely do the research on it.
Yeah, and like Paul said with Glassdoor, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because you will get people who are disgruntled. So look for themes. I always like to look for themes and see if you can pick up on what existing employees are saying about, the people who didn't quit. What are they saying about the company? And those who did quit, what didn't they like? And there's a chance that they just had values that weren't aligned. Doesn't mean it matches your values, right? So Glassdoor is a great resource. There's so many more resources now than there used to be.
LinkedIn, just go right onto LinkedIn.
And sometimes it can feel overwhelming because there's so many resources. But yeah, with LinkedIn, here's a great idea is go to LinkedIn to your alumni group. So if you're a high school graduate going into the workplace, I'm guessing that you are connected with a lot of other people who have graduated your high school in the past. Ask them for feedback. Are they aware of these companies? If you are a college graduate or even advanced degree, get connected with your alumni association. There are career groups within your alumni association as well. Post the question. See if you can find other graduates in your area or other graduates who work for a company that you're interested in. Start a dialogue. Ask some specific questions. And the more specific you are about the questions, the better. So again, identifying your values and what you're really looking for, and then put that out to other people to really find out if there's alignment.
Yep.
All right, question number 3 that you should be asking yourself if you're looking to find that perfect job fit.
And I think this is really important. It's how do you prepare yourself for interviews?
Mm-hmm. This is huge.
Yeah.
And, I don't even know what is standard these days, or if there is a standard about preparation for interviews. I know there are so many resources out there. Again, that can be overwhelming. But let's again talk about just some simple tactics or strategies that you can use to prepare yourself for the interview. In addition to some of the ideas that we've already shared, one of the first things that I think about in preparing for the interview is making sure that you recognize that the interview is a two-way street. It's like a two-way interview. Always have questions prepared for the company that are specific to the company that will help you determine whether or not that company is aligned with you, with your values, with your motivations, with your behaviors.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I know about hiring people. If somebody comes to us, a younger person that comes to us looking for a job, and they sit down and we have to ask all the questions, and and we have to pull out all of the answers from them, and it doesn't look like they're prepared, they're most likely not going to get hired.
Yeah.
If somebody comes to an interview and is interviewing us and asking us questions, I mean, it's obvious. It's just what comes off is that they're prepared. They have confidence. They know what they want. And I'm starting to think to myself, yeah, maybe we should get this person because they're going to get picked up really fast. I mean, so I think confidence in preparation, having the preparation, and then that builds the confidence in sitting down and saying, this is what I want out of a company. This is what I want out of a career. This is how I can help you and your company. That's what a business owner, CEO, or people who are hiring, they want to know that somebody is prepared and that they're going to bring massive value to the company and that they're a go-getter. And so if you go into an interview and you just sit back and let them do all the work, let the employer do all the work, I think you're at a big disadvantage to your competition.
And so going back to the foundation that we laid for this conversation in knowing yourself, it's important too that you really know your strengths. So as Paul said, we're always looking for, with a new employee, where can they add value? Because we tend to hire those people who are great where we suck. When we've got an area that we're not good in, or it feels like hard work for us, we're looking for people who can bridge those gaps and help us with our weaknesses. So I'll give you a perfect example. We were talking with an intern who's going to come and work with us this summer. His name is Justin. And we had an initial call with him, and with no expectation for whether or not he had done research on us. This was just an introductory call we were having. He was telling us that he had gone on all of our social media channels. He actually picked up on some of the strengths that we have in social media, and he picked up on some glaring weaknesses, opportunities for development. And he honed in on where he thought he could bring massive value to us. So I was so blown away by the fact that, first of all, he was independent enough and ambitious enough to take the time and review all those channels. He knew things about our business that I never would have expected him to know, and he asked really, really intelligent questions where there was confusion. So take the time, please take the time and do research. Do more research than you think necessary. So here's the great thing. It doesn't take much to set yourself apart in this job market, because most people will do the standard research. They'll go on the website, they'll go on the homepage, they'll go on the About Us. If they go the extra mile, they might even look at recent news, and they might have a comment or a question ready about the recent accolades that you got in the press. But how many people are actually going on to the personal YouTube page for the CEO or somebody else on the leadership team in the organization and watching YouTubes that are not just the last two posted, but even those that are earlier on? How many of you are actually looking for how the company has evolved over the years and the changes that have been made? How much growth has happened? What were the challenges with the growth that's happened recently? What challenges are you currently facing? What are you looking for in an employee? So when you think about your questions that you're going to be asking during the interview, make sure that they're really intelligent questions. If anybody's encouraged you to come up with a list of general questions that you ask at any interview, I would suggest that's a great start, but that's what most people are doing. So if you want to set yourself apart, start asking questions about the company that are specific to the company or the leaders in the company, the employees in the company. Find out about the culture. And make sure that when you're sharing information about yourself, you are tapping into your strengths and sharing your strengths in a way that is, confident, not cocky, but that you're open for sharing your strengths, because this is your opportunity, your one shot to share who you are. But most importantly, make sure you link your strengths with how you can add value in that role that you're interviewing for.
Yeah, and with that, I'm going to make a shameless plug. I'm going to say any graduate should have a DISC, so a behavioral style, and a driving forces motivator assessment taken. How cool, what a differentiator it would make is if the college graduate had the report, brought it in to the interview and said, this is who I am. This is my behavioral style. This is my motivators. This is what makes me tick. This is how I can get the most out of this job and
how you get the most
yeah,
out of me.
and how you get the most out of me. That would be a massive,
it's a massive differentiator.
You know, and so the other thing is have your parents. So, you know, parents that are listening, you do the interviewing of your son or daughter. Have them prepare for the interview. You be the employer and ask them the questions. Have them go through a mock training. That's how you practice. That's how you become better at an interviewing process.
Yeah, you should never interview for a job for the first time with the employer. Practice. I mean, just like anything, it's the practice. It's being asked the tough questions when you're not ready for them. And there are so many, I mean, and depending on where you're interviewing, there are some crazy off the wall questions that employers are asking these days. So, you know, be ready to be stumped. And what are you going to do if all of a sudden you just don't know the answer? How do you respond to it? So do that, practice it. And if it's not with your parents, find somebody else in your world who is a trusted advisor, another family member or a close friend of the family who you know can help you, and work it through and practice, and you will absolutely nail it. And sometimes, look, it's okay. If you've been on that interview and you've completely bombed, do not let that deter you from going on future interviews, because again, it's sometimes in our failures and where we get the best practice and we learn the most. So after every interview, you should take some time and ask yourself, what did I like best about my presentation at that interview? Like, where did I rock? And then ask yourself, what would I do differently next time? And make some notes for yourself. So every interview you go on, you should learn more and get better for the next interview. And you might even want to take interviews for jobs that are not of high level interest just to get the practice. So if you can get an interview, take it. Always take it, because you can learn from it and it's worth it.
So let's sum this up. So employers plan to hire 17% more graduates this year, 2019, than they did last year, 2018.
And those are college graduates in the United States.
Tons of opportunity for college.
Great market
that's like
now.
almost 20%. I mean, that is a massive increase. So the three questions that you should ask. So what kind of workplace will make me thrive? Number two is the company culture aligned with my own values? And number three, how do I prepare for interviews? So those are the three questions. The job market is hot, hot, hot right now for new graduates. So understanding themselves. If you're interested in having your son or daughter take an assessment that will differentiate them, that will make a massive difference, will blow employers away if you come with your own report and tell them who you are and how you're going to be the most effective and how they can help you be the most effective, please contact us.
Yep. You can send us a private message, or you can always connect with us on LinkedIn or YouTube. We'll post a link to our YouTube channel because again, with the Rockstar Heather Christie, it's sometimes hard to find us. And so if you have any questions, or by the way, those of you, I know we have a lot of friends out there who are in the HR world, a lot of friends who are just like us, where we say, man, I wish I would have known then what I know now. So if you've got some of your top recommendations, top advice for our 2019 graduates, please share it with us. You can post it on our Facebook page or post it on LinkedIn. We'll put this video up on both areas. And share your advice too. Let's make sure that the graduates of 2019 are starting off with their best foot forward. So thanks for joining us today
For another Evolve to Win show. Have a great day.
Have an awesome day.